Yo, 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 what is going on? We'll just say Kingdom Builder Familia for this one. Today, we are going to be reacting to a video that I was sent shortly after we did our Fall of the Rock content creators, and someone had asked me, said, boss, have you seen this yet? Have you taken a look? I said, I haven't. Added it to my queue. Today is going to be the downfall of Chisgule Gaming, how it will happen from Chiz's own words. This should be an interesting listen to. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you... because it helps out a lot. Here we go.
This video is going to be a little bit weird. We're going to go on a journey. It's the Chisgule Gaming journey. And what am I doing with my life? What am I doing next? I actually struggle with this a lot as a YouTuber, and I'm using this as an excuse. The reaction I did the other day to the downfall of Rise of Kingdoms YouTubers to talk a little bit about the downfall of Chisgule Gaming. Like, how does that happen? What goes wrong? And I've put a lot of thought into how it is that I can continue to be a full-time content creator. And, you know, hey, I'm up to 230,000 subscribers. You would think, like, oh, I mean, you just make videos about whatever you want, right? And people will watch? No. No. A lot of people are here just for the guides. And I know I mentioned that in a recent stream or video. And in order for people to be here for more than just the guides, then I need to talk more about myself, which is kind of what this video is. Like, what am I doing with myself? And in the background, I'll have some Osiris League gameplay, which I had the opportunity to be a part of this cast, and I actually declined the opportunity, in part because I was like, do I want to spend every Sunday for the next 3 months, 4 hours a morning, casting Ark? No, I don't. I honestly do not. That's not to say that I don't like watching Ark. I'm watching this. I'm enjoying it. But there's a lot of work, actually, that goes into that. And, you know, when I'm casting on the official channel, which is awesome, and I appreciate having the opportunity, I don't get my own channel growth. I don't get members. I don't get donations. And so it, you know, maybe makes more sense when there's more viewership of the streams, which gets closer to the top 16, which I'm looking forward to stepping in and doing some casting as we get closer to the finals. But the point I'm trying to make is that when I started casting for Rise of Kingdoms, like I'd cast anything, man. Literally back in the day, I would make an account in people's kingdoms to spectate their Ark of Osiris. And this was a thing a long time ago that, you know, you'd make an account in an alliance, they'd add you in, just so you could spectate and show off. Before there was League even, people were doing this. Gecko Gaming used to do a lot of that. And I don't know, man. Like, my interest level is not there for that right now. Not for, like, random Ark matches. And I feel like it used to be. Even spectating random KVKs, I'd be like, look, a KVK, let's freaking go. And now I'm like, yeah, it's a KVK. Even Hype Kingdoms battling it out. I'll watch for a couple hours, and I'm like, cool, it's a KVK. And I like KVK. I'm not saying I don't like KVK, but I guess what I'm saying is, after covering the game for 6 years, you know, the same level of excitement, I guess, isn't there, for being honest. That's really what I'm trying to say. It's not that I'm not excited, not that I don't really like the game. It's just, it's not the same for me as it used to be. And that brings me to, so what am I doing with this?
Okay, so we'll want to start off. I'm going to try and condense this. So start off by saying a lot of people are here for the guides. He needs to talk more about himself for the channel to be able to grow kind of beyond the rock viewership / I'm just here for the guides mentality. The thing about this, and I want to say from my perspective, I feel like I've done a pretty good job of always putting this out, always planting seeds, right, in people's ears, which is that we are a kingdom builder channel. I just happen to be playing Call of Dragons at the moment, just like I used to be playing Infinity Kingdom, just like I used to do some content briefly for Rock at the time. But I'm always on the lookout and the hunt for that next enjoyable and big kingdom builder, whereas I may even cover multiple kingdom builders, right? That is the genre of choice that I love playing, and these games just happen to be within them. And so I think Chiz is saying the same thing here. Just putting it out there more so it's more transparent, it's more clear, and it's more, instead of being out of sight, out of mind, because that's something that can often happen if you don't talk about these things, really. And it can set, I don't want to say a dangerous precedent, but a very slippery one, where the moment you try and branch out and do something else, you may potentially lose some viewership. People may not engage on this varied content just because it isn't maybe particularly the game that they play. So I very much understand where he's coming from. And I think his way of looking at it is very much, I think, a really good approach, which is that have it be in sight and in the mind, right, for the people that watch the content, and always drop those eggs. The next thing was about Osiris League. Oh, sorry, let me briefly say this thing about the whole guide mention, right, where you said, kind of being here, people here for more than just the guides. Part of that is just finding additional and varied content that you can enjoy. And even though I'm nowhere near the size of Chiz, I can understand that, like, if you look at a lot of his content, I would label it as more progression-based content, which is more about, it's like events, obviously any kind of patch notes or announcements, that's kind of general for most people, are going to cover that. If it's how to improve my account, how to level my account, how to develop it, how to optimize my account, that could be for PvE, for events, that could be for PvP, talking about compositions, marches, any optimizations there, right? That's more of what we're talking about, progression-based content. Guides, as an example, right? That's a lot of what he does, even though he also does one-offs. Like, I've seen him do some interviews. I've seen him do, like, top kingdom or top stat breakdowns. He's covered things like drama, if it's KVKs and wars during live streams, right? So there are other areas, but there's also a number of other areas that he hasn't really dove into, right? Whether that's consistently and or even in one-offs. But also at the same time, it has to be what you're going to enjoy. The next one he talked about was Osiris League, right? Kind of committing those 4 hours a day on Sundays for however many months, casting Arc. He's talking about declining the opportunity. I think this makes a lot of sense, which is, again, are they compensating you enough for the time that you're going to be spending away from doing your own research, doing your own content, whether that's scripting or idea crafting, and then going ahead and recording and then doing your post-production? Like, are they compensating you enough for that? And then how do you view that compared to, for example, maybe when he talked about not being able to have his own personal channel growth in a number of areas, what's wrong with him casting it on his own, right? Like, if the matches are being streamed live, then why not go ahead and just cast and live stream from his own channel? And then Rock can basically rotate other people in that want to try to do it. Right, I don't see any problem with that. There's a number of people, like, you look at League of, like, a good example, if you look at, like, League of, like, one that comes to mind, right? Someone like Double Lift, who plays League of Legends, right, an AD carry in that game. He live streams League tournaments while they're being officially streamed on their official channels. A number of content creators and streamers do this. So, why not Chiz, right? I get that. If he feels like, hey, it's more worth it for him to do it on his own, then do it on his own. And then, the other thing you mentioned lastly is, like, the 6 years of covering the game, not the same level of excitement, right? Talking about, like, oh, it's just a KVK, right? Which is nothing against KVKs. But I want to say this, and I don't know if this is something he's going to mention in the video or a direction that he may go in, but respectfully, Call of Dragons has raised the bar. Along with some other games in the genre, but Call of Dragons has very much raised the bar when it comes to PvP gameplay, in Kingdom Builders, and in a number of other areas. But predominantly in that area where it is just a cut above. Rock, it's a cut above, I would say, the genre as a whole, with its presentation, how crisp and clean it looks, the fighting interface, the diverse and complex layering of abilities, of skill sets, of the way that being able to have not only the free movement, but being able to have the actual true ranged play, flying over mountains, the timed out artifact skill usages. I mean, there's things it's doing that is just setting a very high bar. And I'm sure Chiz has thought about this, which is like, dude, why, like, if Rock was doing that, it would be at the next level. Which, respectfully, it's just a fact. And again, who knows if that's a thought he's had, but, like, part of me feels like maybe that's something that has creeped into the mind at one point in time. Let's continue.
YouTube channel. And how do I prevent myself from being the next YouTuber who's in that downfall video? And I think a part of that is, again, building connection between you and me. I think I said this toward the start of the video, or maybe I stopped and started recording this so many times I can't remember if I did or didn't, but I got to talk more about myself and my direction. And the direction that I want to go with this channel is to always cover city building war games. That's kind of where it's at, man. That's, for me, always been my jam. Now, I was really hoping when Call of Dragons came out that was going to be the next big game in the genre. And, like, obviously we all know at this point that it is not. I think that it has the potential to still become that, but I made a big gamble by putting Call of Dragons on my main channel. And the big gamble is that having Call of Dragons videos on the main channel is not going to hurt my Rise of Kingdoms viewership. And I think the reality is that in some ways it has done that. It has done that because the game is not as popular as I think I thought it would be. So it was a huge vote of confidence on my part in the potential success of the game that I put it main channel instead of a separate channel. Because what it means is anytime I want to make a video about a really nuanced topic about Call of Dragons, I kind of can't do it because I know that all my Rise of Kingdoms people are going to be like, no thanks, not interested. They're going to see that video and the click-through rate's going to be really low, or even the watch time is going to be really low. And so the video will never actually have potential to be successful because it's dead on arrival. Because YouTube looks at that and they're like, well, if this guy's audience doesn't like the video, why would I show it to anybody else, right? So I'm not saying, again, it was a mistake to put Call of Dragons on the main channel, because at the time, with the information we had about what the game could be, I think it was the right call for sure. But now it leaves me in a weird spot of, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I want to continue to cover Call of Dragons, because I actually think, people hate to hear this, but in a lot of ways, the game is better than Rise of Kingdoms, but has big flaws, and when those are addressed, could be a better game and maybe could become popular at that time. But to continue to be a YouTuber, okay, hope is not a strategy. It's not. Hope is not a strategy, which means I need something more than hope that the game takes off to be my strategy for how I continue to YouTube full time, unless I want to go back to what I was doing before, which is product management and technology, which was fun. And I actually did enjoy it. And, without getting into all of that.
Okay, pause this for a sec more. A lot of things he just talked about is talking about the potential is that COD could be there, but saying that it's not right now. I will say that to a degree I agree here. On the premise of that COD, with the expectations that many had, including myself going in, and then eventually, once you get in, you start realizing, okay, like some of these things just aren't as well oiled, or hey, it's missing a part here and there. But you still understand that the scope of the game, the framework of the game, has such a high ceiling. And from where Cheers is coming from, like I said, I do agree in that when you talk about like we mentioned before, with the PvP and the gameplay, right, and the fact that he said it himself here. Again, it makes a lot of sense when you think about where the game, again, is still growing. And I also want to point out that there's some things that Chiz hasn't even talked about yet as it relates to Call of Dragons, which I'm shocked that he hasn't, with them adding in home kingdoms, the warband system, a number of just epic changes, the king-queen system that they're adding in, migration, threshold control limits. I mean, there's a number of things that they're adding that are going to be coming out in a couple days from now, on May 9th to be exact, is the first of the two batches, and then the next one's going to be mid-June. And this is such a major shift in the game that I'm shocked he's not talking about this, because this is something that I have no doubt in my mind would allow for more players to gravitate to COD from Rock because of some of these similarities, not all. And so him talking about COD impacting his Rock viewership. So I've heard this for a while, is that if you're going to if you want to commit and kind of go all in on a game, you need to make a separate channel, because the way that the YouTube algorithm works is that it'll push those videos more so than it will, right? Kind of, I guess it's based on engagement, like he was talking about click-through, view duration, likes, etc. However, I will say this. I've seen a number of YouTube channels that cover diverse content, and they still get really good views. Now, this isn't to say that those YouTube channels are like going hard and all in on multiple games, whether they're in the same genre or different. Right? These could be like broader scopes. An example could be a channel that focuses on mobile gaming, a channel that focuses on reacting to games, right? That is something that, again, is a broader focus and scope. But I almost would wonder, right, how that would do if you did try to cover multiple games and we're all in that sense. Now, obviously, Chiz doesn't upload content daily, right? And I almost wonder how would that maybe have differed if he did try to upload content daily on a main channel versus a separate channel. So it is just interesting where, if you, at the same time, even though you have to make another channel, right, what ends up happening if you want to cover multiple games, right? Is it something where you use the main channel to just do sneak peeks, first looks, impression videos, and then maybe if they get good viewer numbers, you say to yourself, okay, we'll do another video, but that video is going to be the one to push it to the second channel that is going to be focusing on the game, and then you just see how well you can produce the second channel. Do you consider that to be more work at that time compared to just uploading it and putting it on the main channel? Again, right? Like for me, I would almost have to test those two things out because I've heard it both ways, even if one way leans more towards making a separate channel. So I can understand to a degree where he's coming from on that. I also wanted to note that he talked about it not impacting the Rock viewership, but then saying that he feels like because it is being put on his main channel and the click-through rate and the average views are not, or average watch time duration is not up there, that could also be affecting the production or the overall result of a video that he produces for COD on there. So I don't know. I don't want to say that like felt a little bit contradictory, but I know he said it didn't feel like it was impacting, but I think he just mentioned more of the specifics. And then the other thing he talked about was kind of covering more nuanced topics in COD where maybe it wouldn't necessarily do as well as it would as if he had a dedicated channel. I mean, to be fair, a nuanced topic to me is like him covering things about like drama and stuff. And to be fair, those videos did really well on his channel for COD, at least comparatively. Now, if he's covering something a little bit more or a different form, a different area of nuance, then I'd have to see that. I don't know if he's really covered anything that I can remember because, again, I don't pay attention to every single video. But as far as things outside of like a drama type of nuanced video, outside of what he would usually put out content-wise. And then I'm talking about, and I think this is absolutely fantastic, the fact that he came out and said this himself, which is that COD is just an overall better game than Rock. And part of that is because it is newer, but a larger part of that, and probably the bulk part of that, is because of just the game design. And them doing things that are taking risks. And a number of those risks are paying off. And those are things that we mentioned before, and then we're talking about like hope is not a strategy. Let's continue.
What I'll say is that my path as a YouTuber could go a couple ways. One is that I can be more of a variety gamer, but people didn't really come to my channel for being a variety gamer, so I don't know why I would expect people to watch me for variety gaming. And you can see this when I cover other games, like even just playing Call of Dragons instead of Rise of Kingdoms, or I was playing some Squad Busters the other day, which I'm now covering on my second channel. We'll get to that in a minute. Or even, as an example, I played Manor Lords, which like was the most anticipated Steam game of all time, I think. I don't know if that's actually true or not. Might have been Pal World. Either way, I feel like Pal World came out of nowhere, but Manor Lords was very anticipated. Regardless, Manor Lords popped off. Very popular game. Point I'm trying to make is if people aren't watching that, I don't think variety streaming is like what this channel can become. I think it's city building war games. The next city building war game on the radar is going to be Age of Empires Mobile. Now, I've had an opportunity to play some Age of Empires Mobile, and the video I did on that did get some really good traction. I did a couple of them. One was sponsored, and one I just did just to like see what would happen, and the viewership was really good. So it is possible that I cover Age of Empires Mobile on this channel in the future, but we'll kind of see. In my perfect world, to do that, I would be sponsored by them to potentially pursue that. I don't know. And that's not even happening until later this year for a global launch. And that's when I would do that. I would make a huge group. If that's something you're interested in, by the way, join my Discord server. So am I just going to sit here for another 3+ months waiting for that to happen? I don't think that's a great plan. Hope is not a strategy. And hoping that that game is going to be popular is also not a great strategy. So what I'm doing right now, and what I've been doing for a long time, is trying to cover a second game on my second channel. And I suppose at this point it's a third game, right? Because I have Call of Dragons, I have Rise of Kingdoms. And I would never have wanted to really do 3 at a time. That just seems crazy to me. But given where Call of Dragons is kind of currently at in terms of viewership, like, yeah, that's where it's at. It just is what it is. So I'm covering Squad Busters now on my second channel. And I'm having so much fun playing this game. I've never been more animated and excited in as long as I can remember. It's really like, really crazy. I'm having a lot of fun playing this game. Not that I don't have a lot of fun playing Rise of Kingdoms. I got a big pass opening. It's going to be pretty hype. Starts on 5.8. But it's funny, like, as I was sitting there waiting just to regroup to do the next fight in Call of Dragons, I get in like 2 matches in Squad Busters, and it's like the pace is just so different. They're very different types of games, which is why I'm covering that on my other channel. But that's the thing that I'm going to go for. I think I'm going to make a play for Squad Busters. I'm doing it on my other channel because I don't think that this audience that signed up for city building war games wants a battle royale style game. Okay. But if you do want to go check that out, go check out my second channel. Now, obviously you may think, well, if you're going to cover another game, does that mean the quality of Rise of Kingdoms videos and Call of Dragons videos is going to go down? And I would say no. Actually, the opposite is true. The quality is going to go up. I think something that I've been doing that, look, I don't have time to do all these things. So the way to make more time is to do less stuff. The way to do less stuff is to hire help. So I'm going to be having more of my Rise of Kingdoms videos properly edited instead of doing it myself. And that costs me money, but like, yeah, it's the pay to win approach to YouTube. Hire somebody else to make your video. Or not make. I mean, I could do that. I would actually like to do that. But I'll hire someone else to edit the video. I'll probably hire someone to help with thumbnails as well, potentially. And just spend less of my time doing those things, and they'll add more value than I could or would want to anyways with the amount of time it would take. And by the way, if you're a killer video editor, you know Rise of Kingdoms, or you're really good at making thumbnails, and you know Rise of Kingdoms, definitely reach out to me on Discord. You could open a ticket in my Discord server. It's probably the best way to do it, really get my attention. But also you could send me a message on Discord. Yeah, add me as a friend first. I'm definitely looking for editing support and thumbnail support because the only way I can scale myself is with help. And there's certain things that only I can do for my business, aka my YouTube channel, which means I need to go do those things and hire people to do the things that other people can do. And that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, so a bunch that was talked about here. Talking about thinking about covering Age of Empires Mobile. So we covered Age of Empires Mobile, and I did a first impression, did a number of other videos on it to start off. And similar to what Chiz was saying, like a couple of the videos that I put out actually did really well. And however, at the same time, and again, I have like a list, I'll probably do another video on this at some point, but I have a list of like pros and cons that I've been writing down from my time playing Age of Empires Mobile. And respectfully, it just does not feel up to par with where with the bar that Call of Dragons has set, a bar that Rock has set in some areas as well. And it is just one of those things where maybe it'll get there at that point. I think there are some good things in the game, but I just don't think that the game is necessarily polished enough and respectfully kind of understands the Kingdom Builder genre enough for the presentation and the first impression that I got. This isn't to say that I think the game is going to do bad or it's going to do poorly. But to me, if you want me to invest my time in something, like you have to stand out. You have to be that X factor in the scene. And when I left Rock, there was a number of content creators that hopped on the Infinity Kingdom bandwagon, or not bandwagon, but just, again, to go and produce content for it, along with a number of non-Kingdom Builder people like Tower, I don't want to say, it's not Tower Defense, but like people that play Clash of Clans and Clash Royale, right? There was a number of people that came over to play that game as well. I mean, even Echo came over to play that. I think Legend Rody was playing that for a little while too as well. I mean, a number of people. Clash with Eric, etc. And, right, they played that game. Omni was even over there, right? And played that game for a while. And in the beginning, it had a lot of potential. Obviously, there's no way to know that it was going to tear off and kind of fall off the way it did. And then you have a number of people that came over to try out Call of Dragons, right? Chiz is still playing it. Shinchi did and played it for a little while. Omni did like a video or two on it, I believe. And so, you know, again, there is a lot of potential still with Call of Dragons, which is one of the reasons why I'm still playing it. But in a similar capacity to Chiz, yeah, always kind of being on the hunt. Now, do I think Age of Empires Mobile is going to be the next big thing? Respectfully, I don't. Based on where it is right now, let me be very clear. Could it maybe get there? Okay, sure. But I just don't think it has enough of those it/X factors where it's producing at the same quality area or higher in a multitude of areas that are branches or cogwheels that make up a Kingdom Builder, compared to some other games at the moment in the genre. The other thing is him talking about being a variety streamer. So, and this kind of goes into like something that I think, so I watch Asmongold sometimes, and him and a few other people. But one of the things I notice is like he just covers a wide range of things, and he'll react to a wide range of things. It's nothing. I mean, even though he always loves going back to WoW and MMORPGs, he has a wide range of things that he'll talk about, even if it is not particularly an MMORPG. And even though he mainly streams, and I would imagine kind of cuts the videos up and puts them on his channel, right? That could be somewhat of an approach that Chiz takes, but just kind of has the main channel be, and this is this idea of like having your main channel be a genre. These are things I really haven't experimented with myself, but I know so what's the interesting part for me is I started in Rock with my content. And my journey is very different than Chiz based on my scale. Is I've always been upfront about wanting to cover the genre as a whole. And so I started building an audience in Rock. And then eventually I went from Rock to Infinity Kingdom. And then I went from Infinity Kingdom to Call of Dragons. And I can tell you, from my experience at least, that a good chunk of people, the bulk, I would argue, not to say like 99%, but I would say the bulk, a healthy chunk, came with me on each of these two kind of game transitions, with obviously the one in Infinity Kingdom to Call of Dragons being a bigger one, right? And I think part of that is because I've always set this early precedent with my viewers that these are the types of games I like in the genre. These are the features that attract me, and I think people like my content because of what I view as a kingdom builder that I would enjoy, that they hopefully would equally enjoy as well, along with hopefully what I bring to that game. And I'm never going to be oblivious enough to believe that 100% of every single subscriber is always going to go with you, right, as for those that do transition from game to game. But hopefully we've been able to build up enough stock as creators, right, when we do those things, especially if we do them appropriately, to where we will get people to carry over. The other thing is him saying that he's kind of hoping that other games pop off. I think that's the hope really for anyone, but I do think it's a good point. I think, again, when you think about you wanting to try and go play something else, my thing is this. If you're passionate about what you're playing and you really, truly enjoy it, then that's going to bleed through, regardless of how long it takes. Or I should say that is going to give you the highest percentage chance for things to bleed through and be successful. But just covering a game to cover it, as an example, if someone offered me like a sponsorship deal to cover a game that I just really wasn't too thrilled about, I would just never do that. Yeah, and you can quote me on that. And if I ever do that, please slap me in the face with baby powder. But that's just me, right? It has to be something I'm really going to enjoy playing. I'm never going to just take something, or I'm not going to go into something if I don't really enjoy it, because my passion is never going to be that. I'm never going to give it 110% of my soul. Then I'm talking about Squad Busters. Now this is kind of more like a Brawl Stars, like 3v3, 5v5, whatever the numbers are. Game that he talked about being a battle royale, and I liked playing Brawl Stars. Actually, I thought the game was really fun, and the fact that he's having a lot of enjoyment playing something else that is not of the genre, at times this can be a good thing, because it allows for you to disconnect from what you're currently doing, at least to a degree, and you have this outlet that you're able to just kind of let loose. And sometimes that can almost like de-stress, decompress, allow you just to kind of chillax, if you will, in a number of ways, and then almost come back in a more refreshed way to what you are doing in other areas. So I actually think it's a great idea. This other thing he kind of mentioned, I guess not directly, but passively it sounded to me, which is that he almost kind of made it sound like channels or genres, right? So as an example, on his main channel, he can cover kingdom builders. But then on another channel, right, he could cover something else, right, on his Chisgule plays or whatever it was that I think I had saw somewhere, right? But then it also is about, okay, well, do you have to think about that kind of long-term investment where the way that you look at a channel, you kind of have to generalize it, which is my fancy French way of saying generalize, but obviously as a genre, right? So you're going to you're giving this channel a genre, this other channel a genre, that other one, and does that affect the way that you name it, or is it just a matter of like what you put out on that channel and then what you put out in your information bubble for what the channel's about, etc. The other thing he mentioned, which is hiring editors, right? Hiring people to do thumbnails. I was shocked that he does this himself. Of course, he does this full time, so he has a lot more time than I do. But, even for me, I have someone that I pay to do thumbnails. And I love the quality of work that they do. And if I had money, if I was making enough to where I would have budget for someone to edit videos, I would pay someone to edit videos. And this is the thing with Chisgule's size. He could have someone probably maybe he starts off small, right? You get someone to edit videos for you. You get someone to do your thumbnails. And then you just basically do everything else. So all you have to do is record. Now, the next step to that would be hiring someone like a YouTube manager. And that's someone that basically it's like all you need to do is record. You send the stuff off, and then they do everything else. Like they'll do all they'll upload it to YouTube. They'll put in all your keywords. They'll do all your settings. They'll monetize, etc. Right? They'll schedule videos out for you. You can have that. And that's kind of the next stage, when maybe you get to that level. But again, you'd obviously would have to pay someone to do that. But it also allows for you to pump out a lot more content as well, because you can just focus on record. And then at that point, you could be pumping out multiple videos a day. Now, does Chiz maybe need to get to that point? Maybe not necessarily, depending on what his, kind of personal situation is. But I think it is a good thing that he talks about, which is, removing some of that workload and delegating it to other people. And then hopefully that'll help him scale too as well. Let's move on.
So this video is a little bit weird. The downfall of Chisgule Gaming. I like the work of Alex Hormozy. For those of you that have been, subscribed to the channel and consider smashing that subscribe button, you know that I have been talking about his wisdom a lot. And one of the things he likes to do is say, okay, let's pretend the business has failed. Like, how did we get there? And what are the things you would need to have done to have prevented that? And then just go do those things. So if my YouTube channel fails, it's because all I did was cover Call of Dragons and Rise of Kingdoms. I never looked to do anything else. I missed opportunities to play other games I would enjoy and liked. And also for this channel to fail, I think Rise of Kingdoms would have to fail. And I personally think that's pretty unlikely. I actually think it's really, really unlikely that Rise of Kingdoms as a game just totally collapses to the point of complete irrelevance. I think the reality for Rise of Kingdoms, like many other city war building games that are out there and have been out there for a long time, is that there's enough new players coming in that the game is doing fine. And I'm sure they're making money hand over fist, quite frankly. And I don't think it's controversial for me to say that. Not at all. All that to say that the economy for the game developers is probably pretty healthy. And I would say that if you look at other city building war games, okay, that have been around for a really long time, they're not better than Rise of Kingdoms, but they're still here and people still play them. And I think a number of people, realistically, the majority of people still playing Rise of Kingdoms are kind of locked in almost no matter what Rise of Kingdoms does. Think about it. I will argue the majority of Rise of Kingdoms players that are older, that are still here, are kind of gonna stick with it no matter what the developers do. I mean, unless they do something really, really, really egregious, which okay, I mean, they could, but I think it's unlikely. They could, but yeah, I mean, look, yeah, it would be a true feat of strength to do something that offensive. So anyways, this match is actually kind of exciting. 25,000 to 29,000. It's close. The arc could theoretically matter. But there's not a lot of time left. 4 minutes left, 2 minutes left on that arc. I mean, we'll stick around to see what happens here. Kind of curious, but this leaves me, right? If failure is I only covered Rise of Kingdoms and then just Rise of Kingdoms fails, I just keep doing what I'm doing and I don't do anything new. I have to do something new. So I'm I don't want to, by the way, I don't want to have to cover other games, but I feel like I have to, because if you just look at the numbers for Rise of Kingdoms, yeah, my growth is really kind of actually plummeted. I used to gain 3,000 to 4,000 subs a month, I think. And now it's 1.5 maybe. And that's, a lot of people would look at that growth and they'd be like, wow, that's actually so amazing. But it's awesome. I love it. But also I have been doing YouTube long enough to know that I need to be smart about this and I need to be looking. And I'm What would also, I think, really help Rise of Kingdoms is if they had another Vikings style release. So if you were around when the Viking Civilization came out, huge surge of players that came into the game, really saw just a massive amount of growth. I feel like a graphics overhaul for Rise of Kingdoms could also accomplish that, but it hasn't happened, which leaves me really wondering, like, is the intention that people who want a graphics update will go to Call of Dragons? I don't know. But the graphics update was this thing that was promoted, and now it's gone totally dark, and I don't know where it is. And that's not a criticism. It's just a statement of like, hey, the developer said this thing was coming. We're in the time frame where they said it would be here, I think, right?
Okay, so touching on this, right? So him talking about his channel could fail, right, for the game to fail. And this is interesting because it's kind of this idea we were talking about earlier, which is like covering the game versus the genre. And him talking about he wants to cover the genre, right? Like this is the types of games that he likes to produce. And then it becomes a matter of, well, okay, what happens then? And this is the thing to also consider is what happens if Rock, what would happen if Rock just died out today, right? Would his main channel then become obsolete? Right? Or would he then go fully all in on Call of Dragons? Like, that's the thing you have to consider about the main channel. And so even though, yes, you may want to start up second or third channels to cover other things, the thing about it is that if you want your main channel to be a kingdom builder channel, which it seems like to a degree that may be where he's aiming for, and like he said, if Age of Empires ends up being the thing, he'll cover that on his main channel. If it's me, personally, I would almost want to bank that hope and that investment on producing content within the genre or playing games and then, again, doing coverage of those games and producing the content on the main channel, because what happens if Rock, right, or whatever a creator's main game is, dies out? Do you just immediately, does his 230,000 subscribed channel just become obsolete at that point and just drops off dramatically? And so, no, you want to be able to convert a large number of that viewership, right? Because you don't want the channel just to die off. And so, again, that's kind of how I look at it, right? Where it's like, if you're going to cover a game that's in a totally different genre, I could understand that making a lot more sense to make a second or separate channel versus playing something like COD on the side channel. I personally think it was the right move for him to do that, which is to put it on the main channel, because you have to weigh the extremist pros and cons, right? And again, I think that's the biggest one, which is if Rock just ceased to exist today, how would he continue his main channel if he wasn't playing COD and he was only playing Rock, right? You'd have to have something that you can segue your viewership and the members there from one game to another. And it's easier to do that playing a game in the same genre because there's a lot of familiar mechanics and systems that players who play Rock would be familiar with, going from one game within the Kingdom Builder genre to another. That's just my thought. I'd love to know what you guys think. Saying Rock will last a while. I think that's pretty spot on. Given how long Rock has lasted, given I would only imagine how much money they make, the fact that Lilith and Farlight, Legu / there's obviously connections there, brother-sister type thing. Call of Dragons, I would argue, is still doing well. Right? You can imagine that, like, if COD failed, then maybe that could be something that goes into Rock, but I don't think that with the investment they're making from Rock to COD that they want COD to fail. So I would argue that's a safe bet and sounds pretty wise from what Chiz is saying. The thing about Rock players, this was funny, he mentioned Rock players are locked into Rock regardless of what direction the game goes in. I mean, this is a pretty big, I don't want to say it's a hot take, but this is pretty big to say, because it's basically saying that even if they decide to shiitake mushroom all over the player base's faces, that they're still going to play the game. And obviously, we're talking, that's like the extreme side of it, right? But that's more or less what he's saying, which is that it could go horribly bad or it could go horribly well. And no matter what, right, they're still going to be locked in. And I would agree with that to a degree. I think that if it really gets awful, like, for example, when, oh God, what was it? It was when they were doing like the Crystal Tech stuff and something came up and they ended up having a bunch of people go and upvote posts. There's been a number of these And obviously I'm not up to date on everything, but I know there's been a number of like massive suggestion waves of upvotes that have been done for things that were implemented that ended up getting reverted. And I think the Crystal Tech thing was one of them, but I don't know the clear particulars there. And so, I could only imagine if they didn't make some of these reversions, would the game still be where it is, or would it be a lesser version of itself? The next thing he mentions, which is about, and this was weird, he said he doesn't want to cover other games, but he kind of has to, right? Like, and part of me feels like that's not entirely truthful. Not to say that this is a contradiction, but to say that it just feels like Chiz wasn't being, and maybe this was just a slip of words. Because clearly, we can see that he wanted to play Call of Dragons. He talks about it being better than Rock. And more so once they get things figured out. Him talking about having a blast playing whatever the Battle Royale game he mentioned, right? So it's, again, he's clearly having fun playing these games and wants to cover them. Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing so. So I just thought that one was interesting there. And again, maybe he covers that. Maybe he'll mention something about that or revisit it. But I think he very much likes to, because I can tell you right now, I would never want to just only cover Call of Dragons, especially if there's other games out there that are just as good, and they could just be done in different ways, or that are better than COD. And then the next thing he's talking about, where in beginning he was saying like he was seeing 3,000 to 4,000 a month growth. Now he's seeing about 1.5K. Part of that I think is just like, I think part of that is outreach, right? So how much outreach do you have out there in the world of Rock with all these new downloads and all these new players that are coming into it, right? How are you promoted throughout the game? And then at the same time, is there a point where maybe, does that indicate maybe the game is stagnating to a degree? Are there other creators that are maybe getting some of that viewership for that new viewership that's coming in? Or is it more of a telltale sign, in another way of looking at it, which is like maybe the game is slowing down as far as being engaged and wanting to go out there and view other people? Now maybe slow down might not be the most appropriate way to say it, but is that maybe how he views it, or in some kind of a way that could be related to that? And so that could be the thing where it's like, okay, let's go out there and cover other games in the genre to also, because the thing is, if you cover other games in the genre, you also have an opportunity for people to find out about you, and maybe they'll watch you for a game that they don't even play, but that they're interested in just learning more about, or they like your takes on it. It could also be something where, for example, they may end up getting into the game that you're playing, right? And they're hearing about it for the first time, right? And maybe they found you off of a first impression video. He also talked about like the Vikings' new Civ big release. So this is something that I think like Lords Mobile and State of Survival do, right? Where like they'll do these cross... I'm forgetting what it is. I don't know if it's like during a big update or something, but it's like they'll do these like cross game things where they'll bring characters or other games into them, kind of like what Fortnite has done as well, right? And they'll kind of do these features of other characters, etc., and kind of have it be a big thing. Like sometimes I'll see the profile picture for Lords of Mobile or State of Survival change, right, every once in a while. So I wonder if it's something a little bit more along those lines that he's referring to, where when they do these big things, like they really kind of do like a big promotion to say like, hey, the game is changing and it's doing so in a big and great new way. And then the other thing he talked about, which is the graphics update overhaul, could help. Or he said people can go to COD, which is true. Come over to COD. It's great. Though he also mentioned at the end where, hey, it hasn't come yet, and he felt like this was around the time that it was supposed to come. I agree, too. I actually agree that I think a graphics overhaul could really bring more people back to the game. And that's not to say like they're going to all of a sudden re-enjoy maybe the particular reasons why they left, but I think it can bring some people back and also attract a lot more newer people, because I think graphics is a really important thing. I don't believe that Rock has awful graphics, but I do agree that a graphics overhaul could impact and help in a positive way.
And we haven't heard anything. But it's like, hey, if they got better things to deliver to us, I'm all for it. I would be curious to know what those are. Or if the graphics overhaul is taking a long time or doesn't make sense. Like I'm definitely curious. I'm so curious as to where it's all going. But here we go. Big fight in the middle. Minute 45 left in the match. I don't know that there's really enough time to take this thing. Likely to be a big GG on their part. And right now, for the time being, the play is that I'm seeing if I can grow a second channel. That gives me diversity as a content creator so that, like, hey, yo, if one genre or the other fails for some reason, I'm not just screwed. And also, I'm just really enjoying it. So I'm doing it. That's a thing I'm doing. You can see my excitement level. Only subscribe to my second channel, though, if you're actually interested in watching the videos. Because, like, if you subscribe and you see the videos but don't click them, that's not good for my channel. That's actually just not good for it. Weirdly enough. Right? It's so weird. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Wait. Mimi's won this arc, but they have no way to get it to the destination? That's tragic. And even if they did, I don't know if it's enough points to win. What are they going to do to transfer this arc? 30 seconds left in the match. Tragic. Check that out. And I appreciate your support. As a like on here, consider subscribing. I'll have a couple of cards in the end screen for some squad busters if you want to check that out. And I appreciate your support, as always. Like, without you guys, there's no Chisgule Gaming. It's so true. So you guys really make this channel into the community that it is, and I deeply appreciate that. And I'll be looking to see if I can't do some more community-based stuff in my Discord, and also, I don't know, events. Are you all interested in events? We should do some things. Wait, the game timer says 0. Did it end? Why? Okay. There we go. Victory for the Lazy Lions. GG. GG. Check those cards in the end screen for the Squad Busters gameplay. All right. We'll see this final scoreboard. There it is. Yep. Until next time.
All right, so pretty much near the end. I thought it was interesting he mentioned, like, don't sub if you're not going to watch, because he almost made it sound like it impacts negatively. And I guess to a degree, I can understand that. It's like you probably would rather have, you'd rather have like 5K subs with like 4K average view of watches per 24 hours, right, as an example, versus having 10K subs and 4K. Average viewers, right? Like you probably would see a potential higher growth rate with you getting 4K average views at 5K subs versus 10K subs, right? And it probably your click-through rate probably is a lot higher. Average reader ratio would be higher as well on average. So it's interesting, right? But I mean, of course, you just would assume people would only sub if they like the content. So, and the last thing he mentioned, which is more community event-based stuff, right? This is actually something I'm totally down for. Like, personally, I think it would be dope if content creators got together and like put on creator meetups for the game that they all play, especially if there's like multiple big creators, right? And like everyone goes in on it as an example and is like, hey, let's do this event for the game, or let's connect with the developer and do something with them, or do something on our own, or if it's just him putting on his own thing. I think it's a great idea. Like, I mean, again, I do some of those kinds of things, but I would love to be able to do more as well, right? Just from being bigger and having more capacity to do so and more financial flexibility to be able to do so. But with that in mind, again, this is actually really good. I actually really enjoyed this video from Chiz overall, kind of getting a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, a look behind the man himself, and getting a little bit more kind of inside his head. This was actually really, really good. I very much enjoyed this. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it too. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, I'll catch you all later.